Well, one man who has a wealth of experience when it comes to nursing back lenders from ill health is my next guest, Lamido Sanusi. He's the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, he rescued some of the country's ailing banks from catastrophe, a move that was dubbed the Sanusi tsunami. He joins me now. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
There's still concerns about actually toxic debt also in Nigeria. When will there be a creation of a company that can assume all of this debt? Have you given yourself a time frame of when this will be a good thing rather than becoming an impediment?
Well, I said last week the Senate had approved the AMCON bill, Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, and that was the last legislative step. We now wait for the presidential signature. So we have actually set up a bad debt company. And once that takes off in the next few weeks, we'll take care of the non-performing loans in the industry.
How big will the actual toxic debt in Nigeria be? Their numbers, 10 billion, this is the most common one.
10 billion sounds pretty much like it. We've done some dimensioning. We've spent the last 2-3 months going to all the banks, taking up the list of not just non-performing loans, but the collateral and the valuations. We actually think we will end up spending about $10 billion to clean up the books, and we'll have collateral worth about half of that.
What kind of advice do you want to give to the European banks? We're in a crisis that actually comes back every 2-3 months, this inability to lend and to borrow actually on the markets.
I think if there's anything we learned from the Japanese deflation, it is that the best way to deal with the crisis is to come clean on the full extent of the problem. Basically, clean up the books, take the worst case scenario and make sure that you raise enough capital to continue. A part of the problem, I think, is that in 2007, 2008, we probably didn't clean up all the problems in Europe, and they keep coming back.
How you're dealing with this toxic debt and the company that's been created, when this gets through, how quickly will it actually be for banks to resume lending in your country?
It will take a little while. Basically, when you recapitalize a bank and give bank liquidity, you address two issues, but there's also the issue of risk. Now, a bank can have the money, as you know. The general macroeconomic environment has to improve. And a lot of that is something that really soft issues. It's about confidence, it's about belief, it's about faith. People borrow when they believe they've got opportunities to make a profit, so the real economy itself has to grow. So it's a combination of fixing the supply side with the banks, but also fixing the demand side by unlocking the bottlenecks on that side.
Now, in terms of financing, you're also planning a 500 million euro bond sale in October. When you look at Europe and all of the debt crisis here, does that make you more wary of going to the markets asking for money?
Well, the total gross national debt in Nigeria is less than 12% of GDP. And foreign debt is only $4 billion for an oil-producing country. So $500 million for an oil-producing country is really not a problem. In fact, I think what we need to do is tap more into the international capital markets because we do have a lot of domestic debt.
Will you increase, then? Will you be going to the markets for more money?
Well, I would say at this point in time, if we're going to borrow, it's really a decision of the Minister of Finance, not the central bank. But certainly, taking long-term foreign debt, so long as we hedge the foreign exchange and interest rate risk, that is probably better than taking more domestic debt at this point in time.
Now, Nigeria has been a vulnerable country in the past. Do you feel more vulnerable because of all the crisis that's been spreading out and the way that Europe is actually handling their own debt crisis?
I think the vulnerabilities of Nigeria are basically easily addressed with the right policies. We need to have a structural transformation. We have GDP growth that has been driven by domestic demand. So it's a question of improving productivity in agriculture and basically improving critical infrastructure and creating a good investment environment. A country of 150 million people, we can reduce our dependence on foreign countries.
Mr. Sanusi, I need to ask you about the football. We're short of time, but actually Nigeria has now announced that it won't play in international football tournaments for 2 years because of what happened in the World Cup. How do you feel about this?
I think the government just had egg on its face and it's punishing the whole country. There was a wrong selection in the first place. We had a number of very young players that should have been given the opportunity. They were not. We took a bunch of old people that have been sitting on the bench in their clubs. They've lost. What did we expect? What we need to do is start with a young team and not punish the country.